Good morning. My name is Dr. Larry Force, and I'm a professor of psychology at Mount St. Mary College, and I'm also the director of the Center on Aging and Disability Policy. Every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, we come together to have a discussion that we're referring to as ProActive Caring School Exchange with Lisa Nathan as a parent advocate and Peggy Pisano as a school psychologist advocate. How we ended up coming to this table and having this type of discussion is that 3 years ago, we were awarded a grant by New York State Developmental Disability Planning Council, NYSDDPC. And the focus was on taking mindfulness-based stress reduction and being able to work it through the New York State network and be able to reach family caregivers who have children with special needs, family members with special needs, and being able to promote the theme of mindfulness-based stress reduction. And it's been a wonderful opportunity, and we're so appreciative of the partnership that is developed with the New York State Developmental Disability Planning Council. And we were following a profile that was coming out of Vanderbilt University, and it was on mindfulness-based and small groups. And then in the second year, we ended up doing train the trainers. And then, as for all of us, the impact of COVID. And as a result of that, we've taken the material. This is the thing that we thought about. We have all this great material, but how are we going to reach families if we're not going to be able to have these congregate, settings, assemblies, small groups, train the trainer? And in discussion with Lisa and Peggy, they joined the grant about 8 months ago. With a very unique and very wonderful partnership, because one is Peggy's role is as a school psychologist, Lisa's role as a parent advocate, and typically they would meet not just each other, but the parents across the table from the school psychologist and IEP meetings. And what we wanted to be able to do is wouldn't it be wonderful? This was our thinking. If every IEP meeting started with a moment of meditation, it would change the whole atmosphere. Because a lot of times those IEP processes, parents as advocates, school administrators representing school districts, it can turn into conflict, or it can turn into an uncomfortable dialogue. And next thing you know, Lisa and Peggy joined the initiative, and now I have to tell you, the comments that we're receiving from the work that the two of you are doing. And I know that, and I witnessed this. I mean, you were having this exchange today, but the both of you put so much effort into identifying a topic, working it through, and having like a clear message about, what you think would matter, both from the parent advocate side and from the psychology behavioral side. So again, bravo and great job to the two of you. The topic this week is called Create the World You Want at Home, Build Your Sanctuary. Now, I've witnessed Peggy and Lisa having exchanges during the course of the week and fine-tuning their message. This one was somewhat different because of the fact of, what do you really mean by sanctuary? Not what the two of you mean, but what do we all mean? So what we decided to do was to have this as, the process, the discussion. And Lisa wants to wrap it around a story of her life because it's what's real. So with that, I don't know which one of you would like to go first, but welcome Peggy and welcome Lisa.
So I thought I would start a little bit, and in my research, I sort of came up with the definition, or looked at and explored the definition of a sanctuary. And I think when Lisa and I were coming up with the topic, it sounded broad, but basically it's very individualized and kind of individualistic. So, but the psychological definition of a sanctuary is a place that you find safe, safe from the outside world, safe from yourself and your negative thoughts perhaps, and just a safe environment. And so what that means for each individual person is certainly very different. And that's kind of where Lisa and I were jumping off from, because what I find as a sanctuary or a refuge is another word for the same place, and what somebody else might find as a sanctuary or a refuge is totally different. But the basic premise of that is that you're feeling comfort and safety, and you're trying to kind of get away from and disrupt, if you will, those disruptive or negative feelings. Basically, a sanctuary can be something internal. You can be sitting in an environment with everybody else and just sort of thinking, and I think that's where the meditative process comes in. It can be environmental, external, could be in your house, could be in the outside, could be in nature. Again, I think that the premise of the sanctuary is the individualistic nature of it. Some of the data from sanctuaries comes out of situations where there's abuse or neglect and things like that, some of the psychological theory. But for the purposes of what we're talking about today, I think it's more how do we find in ourselves and in our life and in our environment, and certainly for our children or the children that we're taking care of, how do we help them find that peace of mind and that sanctuary that is in today's world. And today's world is very anxiety producing. And I think some of the strategies perhaps may support and help that. So instead of us, sort of talking, we thought perhaps we could instill conversation with everybody about what they think. And then I have just some suggestions of how to build a sanctuary for your children with disabilities. And we can go to that a little later on. But we thought that Lisa had kind of a story that she wanted to tell about how she felt safe and secure in a sort of insecure sort of situation. So I'm going to send it to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Peggy. And so I just have to give you a little bit of backdrop. So I have 3 children. My oldest is 22. My middle guy is my special needs guy. He's 19, and my daughter is 17. So there's 2 things merging at once. So my middle guy, kind of like sick or something. It's kind of like a bizarre thing. So when he was 2, he had an abscess on his jaw that required him to be hospitalized for a week on IV antibiotics. And I see something forming on his jaw, and I thought it was a pimple at first. Lo and behold, I take him to the doctor. It's an abscess. So here I am thinking, oh my God, the last place I want to be right now is in a hospital. So he's got this thing going on, and he's started antibiotics, and we're doing the compresses and all that. And because he doesn't tell me, he doesn't tell me it hurts. He doesn't say anything to me. And he wasn't touching it. He wasn't expressing any, discomfort with it. So, all right, so that's going on. In the meantime, my oldest and youngest have very, very good friends, almost like family, who are in Virginia right now. The 2 boys are living there. Their sister, who is my daughter's best friend, is living there for a little while, while all this is going on, to be with her brothers. So just a few days ago, they say, we want to go down to Virginia to be with them for a few days. My son is off from school. He's got a little bit of a break. Their friend has got a break from work. They want to go down there. And I was just filled with all this anxiety. It wasn't not so much about my oldest, but my youngest. My daughter going down there, and I felt a lot of apprehension. And it was more, I think, about her leaving me and the travel to go down there. And it just was filling me with anxiety. The thing is going on with Gabriel, it's the pandemic. It was all sort of merging together. And so the other night I was going to go to sleep, and I was just filled with anxiety. And it felt like when my husband was sick. And, I was starting to go back to my old MO, looking for a show on Netflix to watch at night instead of going to sleep. And I'm going, oh my God, Lisa, this is really taking you over. So I just did what I could to relax myself. And the next day I was just thinking about it. I may have even thought about it in my meditation. I don't remember. And then it dawned on me. It was I just know I need her to be safe. I had no qualms about her being there in Virginia. I'm totally safe where she was going to be. For me, it was leaving me and the travel, and identified that. So I was able to tell my son, look, Josh, I need to know, and he was very responsible. I need to know that you will take care of her. I said, you're not responsible for her happiness, but you're responsible for her safety. And I just laid out some guidelines for what I needed. And once I did that, it was like I was good. And I was like really surprised how much my body changed, how that anxiety left me. And I was able to say, okay, they're leaving. I was in, they actually left last night. So I was on the phone with them, we were just texting just to, make sure they got there okay. But I was all good. And I think what I was really surprised with is once I identified what my body needed, and I'm not saying my mind, because the anxiety was in my body. Once I identified what it needed, then everything was fine. And I was like, wow, because that never happened to me when my husband was sick. I had not started meditating yet. I was not, and this is where that idea of sanctuary comes in, I was not connected. My mind and my body were not connected. I did not realize what was all the turbulence in my mind, how it was affecting me and my body. I didn't understand that relationship. And that brings us to the idea that one of our greatest sources of sanctuary is in ourselves. That we are, and you brought this up, Peggy, then we'll bring it up open for discussion about trauma and neglect, abuse and neglect, because all of us have baggage. And some have more baggage than others, but, and I'm not saying baggage like something, I'm saying true either trauma or neglect or abuse from our past or something that it could even be like your parents fighting a lot. And as a child feeling that, that inner fear, that's enough to create a disconnect from our body and mind. And, you brought that up. So we can learn to heal from our bodies and that's a safe place, but that could be a difficult thing to learn that it's safe here. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring. But we're learning how to do that. We're learning how to do that by connecting to our bodies when we sit and we feel ourselves sitting in the chair and we're feeling our breath. It's all about coming back to your body and learning that connection again. That's what meditation and mindfulness gives. So,
Lisa, you bring up really so many valuable points. I mean, throughout this initiative of the ProActive Caring program, I think we've been extremely reality-based about what is our intention and what is our hope that we would hope that families would take away, from, being exposed to our work. And I think, we are under no illusion that family members under these conditions of COVID, being present for children at home with special needs, that they're going to be able to carve out an hour on a Wednesday morning and sit with a cup of coffee and have a discussion with us.
Right.
I mean, we never looked at this as a town hall forum. And the real strength of our delivery is really being able to capture this exchange between you and Peggy, and then sending it out through our mailing list and our networks and our distribution list, and then families and agencies can then forward it to other people. So we know that our reach is extremely far and wide now, both locally through the state and now discussions, with individuals on the federal level. And the feedback has been really positive. And I think that, as you start to talk about, even though you gave a story, there were so many lessons in that story about the idea of prior to using mindfulness or meditation or a moment, you didn't know what to do. I recently talked to somebody that said that, and this is another area, but they were talking about the fact that before they felt like they were like inside of a bag and they didn't know how to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because of the fact of the ability to just stop. I mean, again, we're under no illusion that everybody that is in connection with us is going to be in a lotus position a week later.
I don't go in the lotus position.
Right. I mean, the reality is that it really is a moment at a time. And here you are, your mind's racing. And I love what you said to your son. You're not responsible for her happiness, but you are responsible for her safety. I mean, that clearly outlines, and I think the message that is buried within your story is the fact that once you identified what was creating the anxiety and being able to stop, think about it and utilize and that's what it is. It's a stop, it's a moment, it's a breath, it's a reframing.
And I just want to say, one of the benefits of meditation is that ability to think more clearly, because I would not have been capable of that a few years ago. It's that development, that practice that gives you that clarity of mind.
And Peg, in the outline that you provided, which I thought was really good because of the fact that you, from a behavioral perspective, you talked about strategies of how to help your child create that sanctuary, or how to help you create that sanctuary. I know people that are dealing with anxiety, and they're not in our arena. Some of them do not have children. Some of them do not have children with special needs, but I still refer them to our ProActive Caring YouTube channel because of the fact that there are techniques up there beyond the school exchange. There are mindful minutes that Lissaja Williams from the Hudson Valley Healing Center created. There are practitioners up there with videos about, how to move, how to stay in the moment, how to breathe. And I'm using that as a reference point for anybody. So Peg, even though your title said how to help children create that sanctuary, it could be really for anybody to create that sanctuary. And maybe
yes, and I think that's true. I think the whole point of sanctuary is to create that safe space. And so its goal in most cases, or the goal of having a sanctuary, is to kind of stop and sort of take a breath, re-examine, decrease some anxiety in children, maybe decrease some of disruptive behavior if that's the difficulty at the time. For adults who obviously have many worries and concerns, it's to stop and, as Lisa said, kind of focus on what the issue is and try to create a strategy that might overcome some of those things. For children and for adults, as you said, Larry, there are ways to create a sanctuary. And a sanctuary, again, is very individualized. However, if you want to help your child, say your child is, has some disruptive behavior or some anxiety, and you want to kind of create that calm, start with what the child likes. If the child likes to be inside, start someplace inside. If the child likes to be outside, do something outside. So you're creating that environment with the support of the child. And so, the likes and the dislikes of the child. If it's an inside sort of sanctuary, maybe you have an area in your house that's sort of designed. It could be a bedroom. That's our dog barking in the background. It could be the bedroom, could be an area of the house. You might want to have some preferred activities there, hobbies, things that the child likes. Have all of those things kind of almost in a play area, or an area that, might be something that the child would go to in times of stress. Sorry about that. The research says that hobbies oftentimes can trigger a relaxation because they reduce tension, because now you're involved in an activity that's preferred. Hang on for a second. Dog's not behaving today. So if it's outside, you have to create an environment that's safe outside so that the child can be outside in a safe environment. For me, I feel like my sanctuary, except for right now, is walking the dogs and having a time when things are peaceful. I walk the dog in the woods. I walk the dog on the beach, wherever I can. And that, for me, is an environment that's sort of safe and kind of gets me reconnected, and my thoughts can be changed. in my house, in anyone's house, the environment might be something with bright lights or something with flowers or something with plants. And so I guess the whole goal for what we're talking about a sanctuary is that to make it individualized and to make it a preference for the person where they want to go, where they can go, where they can learn to relax in the face of whatever the anxiety or the disruption might be. So I don't know, maybe some of you guys can talk about a little bit about what kinds of things are calming and sanctuarial, if you will, for you. That.
Yeah, and I would like to open it up for, exchange, but, and I think the point that you make, and I've heard you and Lisa talk about it through the week, it's so individualized, the sense of sanctuary. It can change day by day, moment by moment. But the idea that you talked about, which is the second one, about it could be inside the house, it could be outside the house, there could be a structure to it. I mean, I think if everybody could just think for a moment what their own sanctuary is. I mean, for some people, it's being surrounded, having their house, surrounded with plants. For other people, it's a particular area in their house, or it's a particular activity, or it's a particular chair, a comfort. So maybe we could open this up, if you could unmute and open this up for discussion, because I think you can see from the presentation this week the naturalness of this. I mean, this is not, a step by step by step. Here are the 20 steps that, in order to create sanctuary, because it's so individualized. But I think the guidelines you presented, Peg, are right on target. So Deb, I'm going to come to you first because you're right there. So Debbie and I, as I've told everybody, we went to college together, at some point. So can you
Hi.
unmute? Hi, good to see you.
I think in my experience, my own sanctuary is just a place where I feel calm, like in peace, gives me time to think, without like time pressures or anything like that. I don't like to like rush myself, I guess. So I usually just take a bath, honestly. And like it's like a sort of like structured, like there's a specific way, like a specific candle, specific time of the day, like when I know like nobody's going to bother me or anything like that. So I just like make a specific time and recreate a specific feeling, I guess. And that's kind of how I take my time to reflect about like my week, my anxiety, my feelings, my health, like mental, physical, or anything like that, just to like have time to decompress and rationalize without having to explain to anybody out loud like what it is that I'm feeling and why I feel that way and stuff like that.
I think,
I'm sorry.
go
I think
ahead,
you made a critical point, Deb, in that the research on sanctuary shows that it's a place where you don't get bothered by others. It's your own little cocoon, if you will, of surrounding yourself with your own supports, and so that it's you're just there and you're with yourself and you're thinking your thoughts and it is a place where you're not, the environment and the world is not competing against things.
I think that with this, point's well taken. I mean, I think with this COVID-19, I hear people saying when we go back to normal, and then I hear other people saying that there's no going back. Everything has changed. I mean, our thoughts have changed, our language has changed. I mean, a year ago, would we be having this exchange about social distancing? I mean, now it's become a term that, we live by. We didn't even know what it meant, a year ago. And I think that one of the things that's happened in this shift is we had somebody on a podcast a couple of weeks ago who practices Kundalini yoga. His name is Justin Logan, but he goes by the name of Ramdas. And, we've had other people on and we've had discussions, even in our private lives, we've had discussions about, what this event has created, what it's taken away, the restrictions, and he's reframed it. He doesn't look at this as a restriction. He looks as this as a time, this is an opportunity. He talked about it's a time of rebirth. You know, what an opportunity to go inside collectively, not only figuratively, but literally go inside. We're inside, and now we're reconfiguring. And, you know, Debbie, the point that you made about the fact that no one's going to bother me, I don't think I don't think there's been a day that has gone by that either in phone conversation or in Zoom platform conversation, I haven't heard somebody say that how much they need private space, or this idea of the need to get away, you know, just to have time for themselves. And that, you know, that was something that we didn't even really think about. You know, there are times during the week that every 2 weeks or so, you end up going to a grocery store. You're not looking at the cans and the shelves. You're looking at who's approaching you, how far away they are from you. Are they geared up? It's a whole different world. So the points are well taken. Wendy?
I definitely agree. I think that my sanctuary space is my home with my children, and like knowing that they're okay. Like Lisa was saying, you know, the stresses of having, you know, older children. I have a 19-year-old that is living in the city because he was there for college, and now he stayed because of work. And it's stressful because he's working in a nursing home, you know, as a student to, you know, and it's stressful because nursing homes are very exposed to a lot of things right now. And obviously we all know what's going on with the nursing homes. And then my husband's a registered nurse, so I'm stressed at home also to see what he brings. I mean, I know like I shared the first time we got COVID late March, and we tested positive here at home, and we were dealing with that. And my husband was very sick, but we don't know if it can come again for another round, or the stresses of what can it still do to the children and the lingering of it. Like, they don't want to retest people. So we also have to deal with, I called twice to get retested just because I wanted to make sure that beyond those 14 days, you're okay, because a lot of us aren't. I know several people that have tested positive again for the second time after 30 days. And sometimes if I feel funny, I forget that I have seasonal allergies, or that I could get a random headache. And I'm like, oh my God, is this symptoms again? Like, you just don't know because you're paranoid. So all of that goes into play, and then monitoring the children on how they're feeling, and then talking to my son that's in the city, talking to him every day on how he's doing and how he's handling it, and things that are happening in the city where people are a little bit crazier than up here just because it's more populated. So it's a lot of things. So definitely being home and being with the kids relaxes me and helps me cope, and just having positive thoughts, like reading positive things every day help me mentally just go back and be like, okay, it's not just me, it's gonna be okay, or, you know, we keep pushing through it. So that's how I'm coping with it, and just one day at a time, really.
And I think your point's well taken, and that's the point of this discussion here today. You know, this sanctuary is not necessarily brick and mortar, you know, and it changes. It can be something, you know, that is a structure or a place that you go to that you feel a sense of comfort. But in this changing world, you may not be able to get to that place. I mean, you know, I love the water, okay? I love the ocean. That's not happening right now. So the question is, you know, how do you go about, you know, connecting with that, but not being able to get to it? So I can't see everybody that's on, but are there other people that would like to add to this discussion? Thank you, Wendy.
Well, I wanted to, if anybody wants to pop up, that's fine. I just wanted to speak to what you just said, Larry, about loving the ocean and, you know, not being able to be there, and how do you connect? And you know, it's like what we spoke about with gratitude. It's bringing up how it makes you feel. So taking a moment to sit and think, you know, how the ocean makes you feel, and embodying that. And you can bring that to yourself. You can bring that to your body, to inhabit it and have a moment of sanctuary there, you know, to how it makes you feel in your body when you're in the ocean, and just dwelling on that and thinking about that. And that could be a little bit, you know, but it's a practice. You build on that and learn how to bring that in more and more. And I just want to bring up one other thing when about meditation and noise, because I know you spoke about that, Debbie. You know, being able to escape, and like bathrooms are a great place to escape and close the door and like, you know, be by yourself and like, you know, sorry, don't bother me. But there's a technique where if there's a lot of sound and noise because we're home and it's busy, the dogs are barking, or, you know, you hear the cars outside and the kids are playing, you can actually use the sounds as part of your meditation. You don't have to try to push them away. Just let them kind of like flow over you, kind of like the sounds of the ocean. You just let them flow in, and it's about not attaching. It's about not just letting the sound be sound and not labeling it. Oh, those are the kids playing. That's the dog barking. Just let it be sound, kind of like reverberating in your ears, and just let it be open to what the sound is, as opposed to labeling it. And then it could become part of your meditation, and you can just kind of like chill and relax and not be become in conflict with it.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I approach this a little differently because, as some of you know, I don't have children, so I don't ever have the situation that Wendy does or some others where the house is full of chaos or whatever. But there's the mental chaos. You can, you know, if I watch too many news shows or social media stuff, you just have to get away from that to a sanctuary. And for me, that's usually been nature. And even, I think that's why I've never wanted to live in a city, that I have to be somewhere in nature, have trees really accessible. My sanctuary here at my home is probably my deck, because I look out and I'm surrounded by trees on three sides, and that can just put me in a different place.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, Elaine, the point you bring home is that it's so individualized.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone's world is so different, but yet there are certain strategies that we can use in order to get where we need to be. You know, and you know, when I in my private practice, I use clinical hypnotherapy, and the power of, and what is it really? It's really relaxation techniques and imagery. And I tell people, you know, when they're being comfortable and they're closing down their eyes and they start to develop this imagery, it can be a city street, it can be an ocean, it can be a country road, it can be your backyard, because the images that make us feel comfortable are so individualized based upon our own experiences.
I love that. I love the point that Lisa brought up about how even if you're not in a physical place or whatever, whether it's physical or not, you can recall what it felt like to be in that sanctuary at another time and make it the present reality.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, as we bring this to a close today, you know, I mean, what's the message? The message is sanctuary is so, it's a construct in many ways, and it changes, and it's permeable, and it's so individualized. But yet there are techniques that you can use, and one of the techniques that you can use is really the hallmark of this initiative, and that's the power of staying in the moment, breathing. And Lisa and Peggy, you know, both from different perspectives, said the same thing. It's a practice. You know, it's not something that, you know, all of a sudden, you know, I had a conversation with somebody who is an athlete, and now introducing him to mindfulness approaches. And I said, remember the time you first got onto the basketball court, and how can you remember that? And he remembers the first game he played. And I said, and how do you play now? And he plays much better now. And the reason he plays much better now is because he's practiced. And that's what this is about too, practice. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. And again, when we initiated and launched the school exchange, the intent was to do it during the month of April, thinking that schools were going back in May. Well, obviously that's a fluid, discussion right now. So in conversation with Peggy and with Lisa, we've committed to continue with this school exchange all the way through to the end of the school year and beyond. So again, thank you, and we'll see you next week. And this will be distributed, through our networks. And we'd ask that once you get it, if you could distribute it through your networks. That's the real goal here. All right, so thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Lisa.